I've got a serious question. Do you want to make a Fallen Empires deck? I know I do. It's the worst set in Magic the Gathering's history, and I want to build a deck around the cards from it. So let's get into it, and let's see what we build. When building this deck, I ran into a problem. There's not nearly enough cards to build a complete deck from the entire set, so I came up with the idea. 30% of the deck is going to be Fallen Empires. That way we can get a taste of that set, and still have a deck that might actually function. Of course, this is going to be a saproling deck. That's when they got introduced, and there's more cards for that than there are for thralls, but I do have a few thralls in here. So who's going to be our commander? Drum roll please, it's Thelon of Havenwood. For 2 green mana, you get a legendary creature Elf Druid, and each fungus gets +1/+1 for each spore counter on it, and then we can exile fungi from our graveyard to put spore counters on each fungus on the battlefield. I could go into great detail about 100 cards that make up this deck, but I'm lazy, and I know you degenerates only care about the Fallen Empires cards in this deck, so let's get into that dirty 30. Every commander deck needs some removal. That's where Aliopile comes in. For 2 mana, get an artifact, you can pay 1, tap it, sack it to have it deal 2 damage to any target. It's an overcosted shock, but that's what Fallen Empires gives us. Any deck worth its salt can play cards ahead of curve. You can do that with Basil Thrall. For 2 mana, you get a 1/2 that you can tap and sack to add 2 black to your mana pool for a mana burst. Let's play some subpar lands that get our Fallen Empires count up with Bottomless Vault. It comes into play tapped, and we can choose not to untap to add some storage counters, and then you can tap it to remove storage counters and only add 1 black. It's going to take a while to get some mana. If you like Brainstorm, I've got the card for you. Conchhorn. For 2 mana, you get an artifact, you can pay 1 and tap it to draw 2, then put 1 card back from your hand on top of your library. It's like a worse Brainstorm for way more mana. Since most of our pieces are overvalued and hard to recur, we can run Draconian Silex. This 3-mana artifact can let us discard a card at random to regenerate a target creature to keep our board safe from single target removal. If you like bad lands, I've got a land that's bad, but not as bad as Bottomless Vault. That's Ebon Stronghold. It comes into play tapped. You can tap it for a black, or you can tap and sack it to add 2 black to your mana pool for a quick mana burst. I am running what some would consider exceptionally bad cards in our deck. One of them is Elven Fortress. For 1 green, you get an enchantment, and you can pay 1 and a green to have target blocking creature get +0/+1 until end of turn. Next up, we have a card that might actually do something. That's Elven Liar. For 2 mana, you get an artifact. You can pay 1, tap it, sack it to give a creature a worse version of Drying Growth by giving it +2/+2 until end of turn. Now it's time to get into some cards that benefit our strategy. Our first one's Elvish Farmer. For 2 mana, you get a 0/2 elf, and then you can put some spore counters on it during your upkeep. You remove 3, you get a saproling, and this is also a sack outlet for our saprolings. One thing this deck needed was a little more subpar removal. That's why we have Elvish Hunter. This 2 mana 1/1 will let you pay 2 mana to tap it, and target creature does not untap as normal during his controller's next untap step. Don't you hate that feeling of going to combat and the creature gets blocked and you weren't expecting it? You can save that creature with Elvish Scout. This 1 mana 1/1 will let you pay 1 green and tap it, and untap target attacking creature, and neither deals nor receives combat damage this turn. Now it's time to get back on strategy with Feral Thallid. This is a huge creature for Fallen Empires. It's a 6 mana 6/3, and you can put the spore counters on it, then you can remove 3 spore counters to regenerate it to keep it safe during combat. Now let's say you want to keep putting spore counters on creatures and you don't want to wait for the upkeep. You can use Fungal Bloom. This enchantment lets you pay 2 green to put a spore counter on target fungus. So if Ebon Stronghold was your favorite land on this list so far, you're going to love Havenwood Battleground. Does the same exact thing, but in green. The bad lands continue. You don't think I wouldn't have put more bad lands in here? We've got Hollow Trees. Comes into play tapped. You can choose not to untap it to put some storage counters. Then you can remove storage counters by tapping it to add green to your mana pool. Super slow and not very good. Like I said earlier, playing ahead of curve is essential in a commander deck. We can do that with Implements of Sacrifice. This 2 mana artifact will let you pay 1, tap and sack it to add 2 colorless mana to our mana pool for a quick mana burst. Do you hate that feeling of being stuck on 1 color of mana in your multicolor deck? You can help prevent that with Initiates of the Ebon Hand. For 1 black mana, you get a Cleric, and you can pay 1 colorless to add a black to our mana pool. If we do that too many times, though, we'll have to bury our creature. If you thought the terrible removal was over, you're wrong. That's why we have Netkrite. For 3 mana, you get a 2/2, and if it attacks and is not blocked, you can sacrifice it to destroy target creature controlled by the player it attacked. In my humble opinion, Graveyard Hate is underrated. I think every deck should run it because you never know what type of decks you're going to come across in the wild. That's why we have Night Soil. It's a 2 mana enchantment that'll let us pay 1 and remove 2 creature cards in a graveyard from the game. Then we get that saproling on top of it. Now we're including the most expensive, or one of the most expensive cards in Fallen Empires. That's Rainbow Veil. This land can tap for 1 mana of any color, then it passes to our opponent at the end of a turn. Next up, we have a card that might actually be playable in a normal commander deck. That's Soul Exchange. This sorcery costs 2 black mana, and we have to sack a creature, but we exile it from the game, and then we get to return a creature from our graveyard to play, and if the sack creature was a thrall, it comes into play with a +2/+2 counter. Now we have a card that might actually win us the game. That's Spore Cloud. It's a 3-mana fog, but is way more powerful. You tap all blocking creatures, no creatures deal damage in combat this turn, and neither attacking or blocking creatures untap as normal during the controller's next untap phase, so that means we can take control of the board immediately after. If you enjoyed that weird fog, I've got another one for you, Spore Flower. It's a 0/1 fungus, it does the spore counter thing during our upkeep, then we can remove 3 spore counters to prevent combat damage for 1 turn. I did have to include a true classic in this deck, Thelon. It's a 1-mana 1/1 that lets you put spore counters on it during your upkeep, then you remove the 3 spore counters, you get that saproling. Next up, we have Thelon Devourer. It's a 3-mana 2/2, which doesn't seem good on the surface, but it does the spore counter thing where you make saprolings, but this one will let us sack the saprolings to make this guy huge and maybe do a KO punch. If you like exposing your lands to danger, this is the card, Thelonite Druid. For 3 mana, you get a 1/1, you can pay 1 and a green, tap it, sack a creature, then turn all of our forest into 2/3 creatures until end of turn. They might get removed, or they might knock an opponent out. Who knows? Worth the risk. We also have a card that lets us turn our spore counters into direct damage, that's Thorn Thelon. This 2/2 for 3 mana does the spore counter thing, of course, and then you can remove 3 spore counters and have it deal 1 damage to any target. Next up, Fallen Empires gave us some weird protection in our deck. That's Thrall Retainer. For 1 mana, you get an enchantment, and target creature gets +1/+1, and then you can sacrifice Thrall Retainer to regenerate the creature it enchants. We also include a weird overrun in our deck, that's Torok's Gate. For 3 mana, you get an enchant land, and then on top of that, when you tap that land, creatures get +1/-1 as long as they're attacking. Our small creatures might go bye-bye, but our big ones get even bigger. Our last card is Wizard's first attempt at making equipments, that's Thelon's Sword. For 3 mana, you get an artifact that you can pay 3 and tap it to give a creature +2/+0, and you can keep this card tapped to keep that buff in place. That about wraps it up. If you want to make more deck techs like this, let me know in the comments below what set I should make next. Anyways, if you like this deck and you want to build it, full deck list is on Moxfield, link in description. So anyways, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.